Right, so good morning everybody. To those of you that did not go to the Beers for Peers last night, you are clearly the ones that are in the room and were in the room at 8:30 this morning. I did not go because I was forced to be here as well. So a very good morning. My name is Nishal Goburdhan, and Michuki and the rest of the program committee have tasked me with doing the newcomers session for AfPIF 2017. So, of course, welcome to AfPIF. It's great to see you here. A little bit about this newcomer session. So for us, it's a new thing. Let me be honest. It's the first time that we're doing a newcomer session. And really, it's because we saw that the number of first-time attendees to AfPIF has been growing over time. And we wanted to make sure that the first-time attendees knew how to participate or knew whom to contact, and also to give you a chance to ask questions and to voice concerns that you've had now that you've sat through a little bit of the meeting. So if you're wondering why we didn't do this yesterday, it's quite intentional actually. We thought that it would be nicer to have you sit through the first day of the event and try to get a feel for how things were run, and then give us a little bit of feedback about things that you thought are working and things that you thought we could improve on, so that we can make this better next year, as well as, of course, give you an opportunity to understand what's coming in the rest of the sessions, so that you can engage more fruitfully with the attendees at the meeting. So a little bit of history. In 2010, there were a lot of really interesting things happening on the internet scene in Africa. And you'll sometimes hear people describe it as the perfect storm of events. And if you've been involved in the community for a long time, you'll know that for the first time, towards the end of 2009, submarine fiber cables started to become available on the east coast of Africa. So for the first time, 2009, 2010, Africa was covered on both coasts by submarine fiber cables. New data center operators started to pitch up in Africa. And the kind of internet scene that we've been hearing about that was happening in the rest of Europe and in the rest of the North Americas and Asia, those were the things that we were starting to see develop in our environment. Now, this is all great. Having access to this infrastructure, having these facilities is brilliant, but you know, infrastructure and facilities are only really as useful as the use that you can make of them. There's an interesting statistic that you'll see advertised in lots of places on the internet, and it says something like 99.51% of peering relationships happen through handshakes. That means it's informal. It works on the basis of a network believing that there's value in interconnecting to another network, and without any written contract, without any kind of legal intervention, the networks agree to exchange network prefixes and traffic. And really, this is how the internet works, on the basis of this free traffic exchange. And it's been growing since then, and in fact, you'll get an updated version of the statistic tomorrow when the people that do the survey, Packet Clearinghouse, will present new statistics. But what was missing at the time in Africa was that there was very little way for Africans to engage. How were Africans becoming part of this 99.51%? Because there was very little opportunity if you were running a network in Southern Africa or West Africa or East or anywhere really, to engage with the other network operators, and to connect with the data center operators, to connect with the submarine fiber operators. So come 2010, AfPIF 1 was born. It was a 2-day event held in Nairobi, Kenya, and the goal of AfPIF then was pretty much what the goal of AfPIF is still right now. To help the African population get to this 99.51%, to this environment where peering becomes almost a no-brainer when you understand that it's something you want to do in your network, and you try to work out how to maximize your network performance to that effect. The other part of it was also to try to understand this new concept on the internet. We hear this other common term that the internet or that the peering is system. And what does that mean? And how should that work in our environment? And how can we get it to work in our environment? Appearing in 2010 was still very new in Africa. There were only about 14 internet exchange points, if I remember correctly, that were active and running. So getting networks into the mindset of saying you can connect domestically, you should connect domestically, how you connect domestically. And at the same time, working with policymakers and regulators to get them to understand what are the benefits and what are the disadvantages, more importantly, when this valuable, this vital interconnection doesn't happen in your country. And that's what we've been doing for 7 years. Our 8th meeting this year, AfPIF 2017, is engaging, trying to get the policymakers, the regulators, the data center operators, the network operators, as well as the general users, the internet civil society, to understand the benefits of this interconnection and how to try to get this to work inside your environment. I'm happy to say that as part of that sort of self-growth process, one of the things that was birthed at AfPIF was the African Internet Exchange Point Association in 2012 at AfPIF 3 in Johannesburg, in a corridor conversation, actually, and you'll hear that term a lot in the internet world. In a corridor conversation, two internet exchange point operators met and decided that they had no formal way to communicate with each other. And while they were trying to solve this problem in the corridor, a third internet exchange point operator walked past, and a fourth and a fifth, and we had a circle around us at the time. I remember, I was there. And the 6 of us decided that it was really important that we as exchange point operators could interact and communicate with each other. And from there, the AFIX was born. And you'll hear quite a bit more about AFIX and the work that it's doing in the AFIX update session tomorrow. So I won't comment too much about that. But you can see something important happening here. You can see the community standing up and taking ownership for something that is inherently its. Right? The community standing up and saying that we can engage, we deserve to engage, and this is how we're going to do it. And I'm very pleased to say, I'm trying not to talk about the AFIX stuff, because you'll learn about this tomorrow. But I'm very pleased to say that the AFIX community has grown, and now we have 35 members, which is significant for us. This is probably one of my favorite pictures from AfPIF. If you were watching the introductory slide yesterday, you would have seen this there. It was from AfPIF Senegal. I'm trying to remember the year. It was from AfPIF Senegal, which is about 2 to 3 years ago. And what you see there is probably just a coffee break. If you look at the photograph, you're going to see just 3 guys probably looking at their phones, trying to figure out who has the best Candy Crush score or something. But what I see is a researcher from Africa, a network operator from Europe, and a researcher, operator, facility provider from Asia. So that's 3 continents interacting in Dakar, Senegal, discussing, well, I can't tell you what they're discussing. I'm not supposed to know that. Okay? This, to me, is the heart of AfPIF. It's this idea that we've created this platform that's creating engagement, not just for Africans. Fundamentally, yes, AfPIF is meant to be there to get Africa to engage with itself, but now also with the rest of the world. And you can see the success. I think the success is self-evident if you go outside. If you go and look at the banners that are outside, you'll see that there are African operators that are there as well, but it's also the rest of the world that has picked up on this idea that it's now Africa's time to grow. It's our renaissance. And, well, they want to engage with us. If you're not engaging, so this is the part where I have to plug how to engage with people. If you're not engaging, if you haven't already signed up, then this is the URL that you'd need to go to set up your meeting tool invitation. You should have received a meeting tool invitation, and this is the URL that you'd need to go to set up your little profile. So, you're encouraged to go online, fill out information about yourself, the networks that you run, where you're interconnecting to, where you're willing to interconnect, and please try to set up meetings with people that are there. So for example, again, stealing from the slides from yesterday, you can see that this is my profile that Michuki had chosen, and somebody else, Madhvi, who is one of the who's the registration services manager at AfRenic. And if I wanted to, using the tool, I could set up a meeting with Madhvi, choosing a location. I've chosen today's dates. Obviously, you can't choose that. So that we could discuss issues that are important to us. I've chosen not to here, and I know the AfRenic team very well, but there's fantastic opportunities for particularly first-timers. Think about it. The networks that you want to engage with, whether they're the content operators, whether they're the big networks that are now building into your region of the world, or even better than that, if they're the network operators that are not building into your region of the world, and you think they should be, this is the moment. This is the fantastic opportunity for you to engage with them to say, and this is why I believe my environment is important to you, and why, well, you're important to us. So please, I heard someone tell me today, someone that should not be saying this, that, I haven't bothered to set up myself on the meeting tool. And I just looked at him and shook my head, because this is a loss of a really valuable opportunity for you. I know you're listening, you can see me and you're smiling. Please set up your meeting tool profile. It's a great chance to meet people. There are dedicated slots that are set aside for these bilateral sessions. And again, if you're a newcomer to AfPIF, you're probably wondering, you guys spend a lot of time drinking coffee and talking and just socializing out there. Well, that's an inherent part of the value of this, really. That the time that you're getting to interact, to engage with the people that are going to make a difference to you and your business. So the breaks, as we explained yesterday, are intentionally long. The lunch hours are intentionally more than your usual 1 hour that you'd get at a conference. And at the time where it seems like we have not filled anything in the agenda, we call them the bilateral sessions. They're intentionally there so that you get an opportunity to engage with people that you think are interesting and that you need to speak to get connected in your environment, or to, well, to engage in for business purposes. I mentioned at the start, my name is Nishal Goburdhan. I wear many hats, and one hat that I wear is the program committee co-chair. So we're here. We're happy to take any comments, suggestions, anything that you think should be improved on, ideas that you have as well. You can drop us a line at pc@afpif.org. Your mail won't come through immediately. It'll get held in a queue, which we will release to the mailing list. But please do send us your comments, send us your questions, send us your requests. And more importantly, and this will be announced a little later as well, we're also looking for volunteers. We're looking for people like you that want to be involved in the program committee of AfPIF. The program committee is a 100% community supported, community elected organization. So if you think you've got what it takes, if you'd like to be involved, please again drop us a note and pay attention to the message that will come at the end of the meeting, asking you to step up and become part of the committee. So I don't want to talk. I promise that for me, this is meant to be an informal session. It's really meant to get questions from you, particularly the newcomers, to give you an opportunity to say, these are the questions we have, these are things we're unsure about. How do I do this? And that's what I'm here to do. So my 15 minutes of fame are now up, and the floor is all yours. Who's ready? Nobody? Jane.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jane Coffin from the Internet Society. Nishal, can you explain to me what a peering personal, or what the peering, in the afternoon you'll have a peering personal or a peering exchange. Can you explain that?
Absolutely. So the way peering personals work, first you need to sign up for a profile. So if you haven't already, go to this URL, that URL, and sign up for your profile, right? Your profile typically is going to have your autonomous system number, the network you represent. If you don't have an autonomous system number and you're worried about it, don't worry, you can just put in 0. We don't fact check that, okay? Or 65,000, that's a special number for the geeks in the room, right? Do write down a description of who you are and what it is that you do. this is kind of, think of this as an opportunity to meet an individual, an organization that's going to add value to you. It's kind of like a job interview if you want to think about that. So you really want to sell either yourself or the business that you're involved in. So write up your little profile, and then go to the tool and try to set up a meeting with somebody. And this is really the heart of the bilateral process, where you find somebody, say you're interested in connecting to the Johannesburg Internet Exchange Point, that's the IX that I run. If you're interested in connecting to Joburg, or you just want more information, or you want to know how we do something, then this is the opportunity where you'll get to see my calendar, my schedule, and you'll be able to book a directed meeting slot with me. Now, if your profile is complete, and this is another hint that you should have a completed profile. If your profile is complete, then I'll look at your request as it comes in, and if it matches a free slot in my diary, I'm going to say yes or no. And this is the first part about making contact with somebody, right? This is the opportunity for you to say, well, now that we've got 20 minutes to engage with each other, we can now talk about how we can do business together. And this is one of the ways that you can make contacts. You can make contacts, and you can make a dedicated long-term contact with folk during the event. The other way to do it is something that's going to happen a little later today as well. You would have seen the first part of it yesterday. We asked operators to send in a slide, and I've regrettably forgotten to add it here, but we've asked operators to send in a slide with your autonomous system number, right? Your network, where you're peering, and your peering policy. Please send that to Michuki, so mongi@isoc.org. And later on, we're going to give you the opportunity to come on stage, and you get 15 seconds of fame, only 15 seconds, where you get to describe where you are, where you interconnect, and that's really the important part. And so people can identify. So people can identify you. So if you're particularly interested in growing your interconnection, or growing your exchange point, or your data center, or your business, and you're in a particular market, the easiest way to get to meet everybody is to send that slide to Michuki, so that people can identify that, hey, you're an exchange point operator, and well, if they want to talk to you, they'll either try to book a meeting with you with the meeting slot, or they'll find you outside during the tea breaks. So now that Jane's broken the ice, more questions.
Hello, this is Yazid from Benin. I would like to understand if or how do you evaluate all those work that are being done to peer, to interconnect the infrastructures in Africa? How is it evaluated in terms of end user or low-level customers? Or maybe I'm wrong, maybe it is not one of the objectives of AfPIF meetings. I would like to just get clarification on that. Thank you.
Okay, that's a good question. It's a question you're going to hear a lot more about over the next 2 days. How do we judge the success of the event? I think it's difficult to say that you want a fixed number, particularly when you think about what the output of AfPIF is meant to be. And I don't think that it's accurate to say that one of the outputs of AfPIF is going to be that we've increased peering 40 or 50 or 60%, because that's not a really good measure for me. What's a good measure for me is that there's been education done. Right? There's been education done on how to peer in an ecosystem, or how to set up an environment to get ready for peering. And that's a large part of what happens here. I can give you examples. They're not concrete. They're concrete examples, but they're bad to use as a measure of the success of AfPIF or not. To me, I'd say a large part of the success, personally, is the kind of engagement we get from the community. AfPIFs 1, 2 were generally not so quiet, but from AfPIF 3 onwards, we've started to see in excess of generally about 300 participants come to the event, engage. You don't see them all in the room at the same time, because there's a lot of people out there that are trying to understand how to get this peering thing worked. For one of the critical success factors that came out of AfPIF for me was AfX. I have a slight bias about that because I'm an exchange point operator, but the simple truth is that it was AfPIF Johannesburg that led to for the first time, all of these exchange point operators in the same venue, and these exchange point operators deciding that it was time to interact. How do I measure the value that you get out of being able to meet the individual content networks, the individual transit providers, the individual data center operators that might add value to you? I think that's very difficult to do. And I think that's something that we don't want to peg down, at least at an individual-ish or even at a country-ish type level. We spend a lot of time thinking about where AfPIF should be the next year. We spend a lot of time thinking about the program, and it's all geared towards giving broad indications of things that should be in place. And some of the issues that you'll see discussed over the next 2 days are, what are the problems that are preventing West Africa from growing the way that we all know that it should be growing, right? We can educate, we can teach, we can show best practices, but if in an environment there's unwillingness to move on that, that's not really necessarily a bad part about AfPIF. The part about AfPIF was people got the opportunity to engage and change. So I would say that we don't have KPIs per se. More questions? Jane? Jane only gets 2 questions.
If I want to start an IXP and I'm not quite sure how to do it, who would I ask?
That's a really good question. You could ask Jane, the wonderful lady that's just speaking. You could speak to pretty much anybody on the program committee at AfPIF, and they'd be able to point you in the right direction. So they're not very clear, but the program committee, all of us have these little yellow tabs at the top that you'll be able to see. There are a whole bunch of folk here that do exchange point work. My daytime job is working with an organization that does exactly that, as is Jane's and as is Michuki's. There are a bunch of folks that are wearing red tags, if I remember correctly. The red tags are the internet exchange point operators. So the exchange point operators can also point you towards the members of the African Exchange Point group, AFIX, that I've been talking about. And the AFIX folk will be able to assist you in getting to the right people and going through the process of saying, well, this is how you can now start your internet exchange point. Yes. You need a mic.
When you go to the meeting tool, it asks for a username and password.
Yes, so you should have been mailed a username and password when you've registered. When you've registered, you use an email address. So to that email address, you should have gotten a username and password mailed to you. If you have not gotten that, then the best thing to do is to get a hold of the secretariat. You should be able to find Betel and Marsema downstairs, Michuki as well, and I can help you. So try to find one of us after the, well, you probably want to do it before the bilateral starts, and we'll help you get a username and password. We'll help you sort that problem out. Yeah, Nene. The lady first. Okay. I'm old-fashioned.
Keep the mic shut. Good morning. Just a quick one on the meeting tool itself. On the meeting tool itself, I get an invite for a meeting and I only have 2 options: to confirm it or to reject it. I would love to give the person to whose meeting I cannot attend a reason other than being I'm not available. I could just say that I don't like your face or I don't want to see you or something, but well, there should be an option to give that person another reason for not being able to attend the meeting other than not having the time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Feature request duly acknowledged, and I'll pass it on to the meeting tool administrators. Please go ahead.
Okay. I would like to also know if AfPIF intervene in government processes to influence peering, because I'm seeing a lot of operators, etc. And yesterday in the plenary session we discussed about it. Without government, peering maybe I will say will not grow. Okay, so what AfPIF is doing with governments to increase the peering? Thank you.
Okay, so that's a very good point. So yesterday, you would have noticed that the day was filled with very technical sessions. Some of them were not so technical. We tried to start light early on in the day, and after lunch, it got quite technical, so you would have been subjected to people talking about lambda manipulation and things like that. That's by design. The first day of AfPIF, the general meeting, is what we call the peering coordinators and technical session day. So we try to be technical, we try to talk about things that are going to help, amongst others, improve the quality of the network engineering people, the quality of the peering coordinators in Africa, okay? Because peering is primarily, well, peering is potentially primarily a technical thing. You need skilled network engineers to set up BGP, etc., etc. But you're absolutely correct. The thing that's going to make people peer or not is an active decision to say, we want to do this, and that's a policy decision, right? And that's a policy decision that starts within an organization generally, but the regulators and the policymakers in a country have ways to influence and to engage and to do that, particularly in countries that do not have internet exchange points yet. So if you're worried that you did not see very many policymakers in the room, I can promise you that that's going to change today. So later today, you will see that yesterday, the African Union was having the Access Steering Committee meeting here. Today, a lot of the attendees from the steering committee will be in the room today. They'll be listening and engaging, hopefully, with the discussions that we're having. And if you look at the agenda, which is published online, you'll see that the topics that are meant to be discussed over the next 2 days bleed into that. They're meant to engage and to get policymakers and regulators to understand how to create and build the environments to grow and stimulate peering inside their ecosystem. The truth is that the geeky stuff, the technical stuff about peering was figured out a long time ago. You know, internet exchange points are not a new thing. Internet exchange points have been in operation for 25 years now. So the technical community has a lot of experience in how to run, how to manage, how to build, and how to get peering done. What we need to do now is to get the policymakers in countries and in environments that haven't understood or are slow to adopt this, to get them to understand why this is a good thing for the environment. And that's not about the technical stuff anymore. To me, really, it's about the economics. It's about the economics of the environment. So when I teach peering classes these days, for example, you'll very rarely hear me mention the word BGP, but you'll hear me mention words like balance of payments deficit, which is an economics term, more often than some of the accounting, than some of the technical terms that you'd expect. So absolutely, I can already see some of our friends from the African Union here. There'll be plenty of opportunity for you to engage with the policymakers during this event. More questions? Okay, so if there are no more questions, I'm going to look for Michuki so I can hand over the microphone gracefully to him so that we can start the formal session. Again, welcome to AfPIF. I hope you have a wonderful meeting. I put the email address of the program committee up again. We're very, very eager to listen to comments from you on how we can make the event a better event. So please feel free to not just email us. Because peering is a social thing, please reach out to us. We're mostly very, very accessible. We'll be happy to talk to you, happy to listen to your comments, and happy to try to make this event a better one for you. Thanks very much and have a good meeting.